Now let's try number question 3 on fractions. This question is quite okay, but you need to take note of how to actually measure fractions in terms of the total. So that one we will have to do in part A over here. So in a sewing kit, right, there are blue, green, and red buttons. 1/5 of the buttons are blue and 4/7 of the remainder are green. The rest are red buttons. So if I were to draw it out using primary school method, right? So 1/5 is actually blue. So 1/5 of the buttons are blue. And then 4/5 over here, right, will be the green plus the red, of which out of this 4/5, because this is the remainder, right, 4/7 of the remainder are green. So 4/7 out of the 4/5 are green. Okay? So the question wants us to find the fraction of the red buttons in the sewing kit. So for 3A, right, because this fraction 4/7 is of the remainder, in order for us to express the fraction of the green buttons out of the total, we have to take 4/7 times 4/5, which is the remainder. In this case, it will be 16/35. So this is the fraction of the green buttons out of the total. So with that, the fraction of the red buttons will be 1 minus 1/5 minus 16/35. Because now these two fractions are the fractions of the blue and the red buttons out of the total. So this gives us, let's see, 12 out of 35. Okay, so this will be the fraction of the red buttons. Okay, so now let's do 3 part B. Find the ratio of the blue buttons to green buttons to the red buttons. So this is the fraction of the red buttons, right? Okay, so let's write it out. Blue button is to green button is to red button. So blue is to green is to red. So the fraction of the blue buttons is actually 1/5. The fraction of the green buttons is actually 16 out of 35. And the fraction of the red button is 12 out of 35. So what we do here is we make this, the denominator, the same as this and this. So 5, to make it 35, we times 7 below. 5 times 7 is 35. And then we do the same on top. 1 times 7 is 7. Is to 16/35 is to 12/35. And because all the denominators here are the same, we can just write down the numerator for the ratios, which is 7 is to 16 is to 12. And we are done with question number 3B. For 3C, find the total number of buttons if there are 80 green buttons in the sewing kit. So this is the ratio that we found earlier, right? So 16 units, which is the green buttons. There are actually 80 green buttons. And the total of this ratio is 7 plus 16 plus 12, which is actually equals to 35. Which means that if I were to calculate 35 units, right, that will be the total number of buttons. So first thing, I calculate 1 unit first. So 16, to get to 1 unit, I need to divide by 16. So same goes for over here. So I can just call this buttons, okay? There are 80 buttons for 16 units. So 80 buttons, I divide by 16 as well. Because I divide by 16 here, I must also divide by 16 here. So 80 divided by 16 is 5 buttons. And to calculate the total number of buttons, there will be 35 units, which is actually 5 buttons times 35. So this actually gives us 175 buttons. So that will be the total number of buttons, and we are done with question number 3.